Hey, I'm Scott L. Miller. This is the 6th of January, 2021. This is Sheepguarding Llama, and today was absolutely crazy. Anyone who lives in the United States is aware that today started off as what was supposed to be, part of the election process in Washington, D.C., and turned into the Capitol riots and an actual siege on the U.S. government and an attempt to overthrow the country. And so this was an active coup d'etat in process. We started the day just watching the news because we knew a lot was going on today because it was supposed to be, election day and the certification of the President of the United States. And instead, crazy armed mobs led by the president and a bunch of his team sieged the U.S. Capitol, took over part of the U.S. Capitol, part of the city, part of the actual physical Capitol building, threatened the lives of Congress and the Senate, and the military had to be called in, and there was a complete failure of security in the city. And for anyone watching this in the future, right, it's easy to look back at this as being kind of a minor event, and it kind of turned into sort of a minor event because there was it was such a long shot deal, right? Trying to overthrow the government of the United States is not a casual thing. Attempting to do so with very little organization. But what's also crazy is we were watching the news and I wonder if some stuff will happen today. Like there's some riot, there's going to be some riots, going to be some violence. And we actually had full on domestic terrorism and an attempted coup at a large scale where they actually took the Capitol building. And we're just watching the news and it's a constant report of we've lost control of the Capitol. They've breached the outer walls. They've breached the inner security. They're evacuating Congress. They literally don't know if Congress is going to survive the day. The sitting president has ordered people to hunt down the vice president, to hunt down the leaders of Congress. This is truly terrifying. And we've been afraid of living in the United States for some time, but the level of fear and worry about the state of the country and how close we potentially came to civil war today was far more than I think anyone really anticipated. We all knew something terrible could happen, but the degree of this that actually played out today and how close something really, really terrible came to happening caught everyone by surprise, right? This was, it'll never be something that we'll be able to describe to future generations how bad this was and how close we came to losing control of the country completely. Democracy effectively failed today. It showed that the United States is unable to handle anything outside of the norm. If anyone tries to not follow the rules, and most of the American rules are convention, nothing's in law, and especially because we're a common law country, that means nothing's illegal until after a court says you did something illegal. The laws don't matter, because a judge can just say something's illegal after the fact, or say something that was written in a law is legal after the fact, right? So it's a real problem in a country like this where we depend on people following tradition to be our legal system. And so when someone is willing to simply act outside of that, our systems don't work at all. And they don't work very well when they do follow convention. So how badly they work now is really exposed. So this was truly a scary day. So our entire day, we basically didn't work today. All of us, including the kids to quite some degree, just sat with the news on and watching the news on our phones the entire day. It's all we did. Absolutely gripping and scary and, really important historical events playing out in real time. Obviously, the Congress has certified Biden as the new president. He will be taking office in the future, but that so much of America is willing to not have democracy and doesn't want an election process. And now other countries are like this, right? But the scale of America in physical size and in population and in its tendency towards violence means that if things fall apart here, while that's less likely than, say, Venezuela, right, where they've had a number of problems over a number of years, the degree to which this could turn into an absolute bloodbath over an unbelievable number of people is so much higher, right? So it's less likely for something bad to happen, but if something really bad happens, it will probably be so unbelievably bad. That's what makes it really scary here. Just the amount of the potential for the entire country to tear itself apart and suddenly just make it, open warfare with no functional government. We came really close to that today. Luckily, all throughout the country, it was not sporadic fighting everywhere, and they didn't have to, it was isolated to the capital for the most part. But we were on the edge, right? And people will, after the fact, be like, oh, that's silly. But of course, it was silly to think that someone could take the capital, right? If you said that 2 days ago, people would be like, that's ridiculous. No one could possibly do that. There's so much security and no one would try that. The president would never incite people to do that. Giuliani would never tell people to go do that. And of course they did, right? And the mob listened to them, and they had planned it, and they went back and found that they had planned this all along. This was a very orchestrated thing, and that they sieged the Capitol, that it worked, that they almost completely took it over and kept it. That they weren't able to keep it is the only thing that failed, right? And how close we came to being like any other failed state and having no functional government. And already we're in a state where no one believes that the election process is real and that things have worked, and that we should even have elections. It should just be mob rule. Seems to be half of the country believes that to be the case, that it doesn't matter what we vote on. It should be who they want regardless, which is fine. But we have to admit at that point, you don't want democracy. You want something else, right? So, but the claim is always democracy at any cost, as long as it's democracy by tyranny and not democracy, right? The U.S. has never been big on democracy. We always use democracy as a cover for what we actually do, but the degree to which we're looking for something absolutely polar opposite to democracy was really exposed today, especially as from all over the country, people supported the coup, right? It was seen as a positive to nearly half the country, which is pretty scary, especially given that we had what is broadly believed to be the most accurate and best represented election in American history, right? Whereas far from a tampered election as there has ever been in this country, and for almost any country, right? This was really outstanding how well managed this election process was, and yet this still happened. So that was our day. Unbelievable. There's no way to really describe it. I really just wanted to make this video so that when we come back in the future and watch this, it's like, wow, this was our day, just glued to the TV, so upset that we didn't manage to move out of the country all this time. COVID has kept us trapped. We've been trying to emigrate since April. We're now at almost 10 months. We've been trapped in the country. Their borders are closed. We're not able to leave. And this stuff is happening. It really feels like Germany in the late 1930s, where people didn't have anywhere to go and terrible things are happening and they don't know what to do at that point. That's how we're feeling. We have that incredible anxiety of we just want to get out, and not being able to. But it's truly scary here. And while that's not the reason that we're looking at emigrating, it is important to understand that for the safety of us and our children, getting out of the United States is a really high priority. Because of that, we are living under if things don't go badly, the U.S. tends to be pretty safe. But when things go badly, the U.S. is the least safe place ever. And so it's the way that danger spikes in the United States is very different than other countries. And it makes it easy to feel like, oh, what could possibly go wrong? Well, it's not too likely. But when it does, it will really, really go wrong. So that was our day, and I hope that my children don't forget that this was something that they lived through, and what it was like for all of us, worried to find out if the United States would even exist as we knew it by tonight. And right now, at the end of the day, it seems like things are okay, but we still don't know exactly what tomorrow is going to bring. The National Guard is now out in force, and it's scary that we have military on the streets, and they're not necessarily managing to control it. That's both things, that we have to have military on our own streets, and that they may not be able to maintain control, are both terrifying things to have happening.